Who's running for president? Here's a rundown of the 2024 candidates. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaks during a campaign event at the Adrienne Arsht Center for the Performing Arts of Miami-Dade County, Thursday, October 12, 2023, in Miami. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. With more than a year until the 2024 presidential contest, the field of candidates is largely set. Former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have continued to dominate the early Republican race, yet Trump maintains a commanding lead, as the other candidates look for an opening to take them on. President Joe Biden faces a couple of Democratic challengers but is expected to secure his party's nomination. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez ended his campaign in late August after failing to qualify for the first Republican debate. He was the only Hispanic candidate and the first to drop out. Former Republican Texas Congressman Will Hurd also suspended his presidential bid in October after failing to qualify for the debate stage. Also leaving the field were businessman Perry Johnson and conservative talk radio host Larry Elder. Former Vice President Mike Pence dropped out Saturday. A look at the candidates competing for the Republican and Democratic nominations. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. Republican primary. FIELD. Trump. The former president announced his third campaign for the White House on November 15 at his Mar-a-Lago resort, forcing the party to again decide whether to embrace a candidate whose refusal to accept defeat in 2020 sparked the U.S. Capitol attack and still dominates his speeches. The GOP frontrunner remains hugely popular in the Republican Party, despite making history as the first president to be impeached twice and inciting the Capitol insurrection on January 6, 2021. Referring to himself as America's most pro-life president, Trump's three nominations of conservative judges to the Supreme Court paved the way for the reversal of Roe v. Wade, which had legalized abortion nationwide for nearly 50 years. Sweeping criminal justice reforms he signed into law in 2019 eased mandatory minimum sentences and gave judges more discretion in sentencing. In March, Trump became the first former U.S. president to be criminally charged, facing 34 felony counts of falsifying business records as part of a hush money scheme. He is now under indictment on dozens of charges related to alleged mishandling and retention of classified documents. Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, officially launched his 2024 presidential campaign on May 24 in a glitch-marred Twitter announcement, casting himself as Trump's only legitimate Republican rival. Heralding his state as a place where woke goes to die, DeSantis has framed his campaign around a desire to bring the conservative policies he championed in Florida to the national stage. He has made a name for himself battling with Disney over the entertainment giant's opposition to a bill dubbed by critics as the "Don't Say Gay" law, which bans instruction or classroom discussion of LGBTQ issues in Florida public schools for all grades. Under his governorship, the state has also banned abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and blocked public colleges from using federal or state funding on diversity programs. Tim Scott, the South Carolina senator, launched his campaign May 22 in his hometown of North Charleston with what he's casting as an optimistic and compassionate message that can serve as a contrast with the rest of the field. The Senate's sole black Republican, Scott has rejected the notion that the country is inherently racist and repudiated the teaching of critical race theory. He has said his party and the country are at a crossroads and must choose between victimhood or victory. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. Nikki Haley, the former United Nations ambassador and South Carolina governor, became the first major GOP challenger to Trump when she kicked off her campaign on February 15 in Charleston. She is the only woman in the GOP field. The former Trump cabinet official once said she wouldn't challenge her former boss for the White House in 2024. But she changed her mind, citing the country's economic troubles and the need for generational change, a nod to the 77-year-old Trump's age. Vivek Ramaswamy, the wealthy biotech entrepreneur and author of Woke, Inc., kicked off his presidential campaign on February 21 with a video and op-ed. The son of Indian immigrants, he has gained stature in conservative circles for his criticism of the environmental, social and corporate governance movement that aims to promote socially responsible investing. He has largely self-funded his campaign so far. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. Chris Christie, the former two-term New Jersey governor, went after Trump when announcing his presidential campaign on June 6 in New Hampshire, calling the former president a lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog, and arguing that he's the only one who can stop him. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. Christie a 2016 presidential candidate and former Trump advisor, has said that others may be afraid to challenge the former president, but he has no such qualms. "The reason I'm going after Trump is twofold," Christie said. 1. He deserves it. And 2. It's the way to win. Asa Hutchins, the former two-term Arkansas governor, launched his presidential campaign on April 26 in Bentonville, pledging to bring out the best of America and to reform federal law enforcement agencies. He announced his campaign shortly after Trump was indicted by a grand jury in New York and has called for the former president to drop out of the race, saying, "The office is more important than any individual person." Doug Burgum, the two-term North Dakota governor, announced his candidacy on June 7 in Fargo. A former computer software entrepreneur, he is known to few outside his home state but portrays himself as a common-sense, rural state conservative experienced in energy policy. Democratic primary FIELD-JOE Biden. President Joe Biden formally announced his re-election campaign on April 25 in a video, asking voters for time to finish this job. Biden, the oldest president in American history, would be 86 at the end of a second term, and his age has prompted some of his critics to question whether he can serve effectively. A notable swath of Democratic voters has indicated they would prefer he not run, though he is expected to easily win the Democratic nomination. Biden, who has vowed to restore the soul of America, plans to run on his record. He spent his first 2 years as president combating the coronavirus pandemic and pushing through major bills such as the bipartisan infrastructure package and legislation to promote high-tech manufacturing and climate measures. Marianne Williamson. Self-help author Marianne Williamson entered the Democratic primary on March 4 in Washington, calling for a vision of justice and love that is so powerful that it will override the forces of hatred and injustice and fear. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than during her unsuccessful 2020 presidential campaign. She proposed the creation of a Department of Peace and argued the federal government should pay large financial reparations to Black Americans as atonement for centuries of slavery and discrimination. Dean Phillips. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than the Minnesota congressman is the first elected Democrat to challenge Biden for the nomination. After months of calling for a primary challenger, Phillips entered the race himself on October 27 with a speech outside New Hampshire's State House. While Phillips has been effusive in his praise for Biden, the 54-year-old also says Democrats need younger voices to avoid a nightmare scenario where Trump wins another election next fall. Phillips is one of the wealthiest members of Congress and heir to his stepfather's Phillips Distilling Company empire, which holds major vodka and schnapps brands. He once served as that company's president but also ran the gelato maker Talenti. His grandmother was the late Pauline Phillips, better known as the advice columnist, Dear Abby. Major independent candidates Kennedy Jr., the best-selling author and environmental lawyer, launched a long-shot bid to challenge Biden on April 19 in Boston. He exited the Democratic contest on October 9 to run instead as an independent candidate. A nephew of President John F. Kennedy and son of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, he has emerged as one of the leading voices of the anti-vaccine movement, with public health experts and even members of his own family describing his work as misleading and dangerous. He has also been linked to far-right figures in recent years. Meg Kinnard can be reached at http://twitter.com/megkinardapp.